Hey, what's up guys? This is Oakley, and yes, this is in fact going to be Rome 2 Total War, my favorite Total War game, not only for the time period, but also the faction variety, the mechanics, and all that very, very cool stuff. In any case, this is going to be a 2 versus 2 battle where I'm going to be playing as the Massagetæ. Very cool faction to bring. It is the ancient equivalent of Bretonnia. Very strong shot cavalry forces in the form of these Saka cataphracts. You can take a look at some of them. So I do also like these kind of step lancer forces with the ram's horns on top of them. Just looks so freaking scary. So I have a bunch of the cataphracts and then a mix of maybe like 30-40% of my force is going to be mounted horse archers. So mercenary Amazonian riders with armored horse archers going to be pulling over to the left. On the right I have armored horse archers pulling to the right with step armored lancers in support. My ally is going to be Rome. He's fielding a smaller force with just 4 Praetorian Guard, 3 Triarii, and it looks like just 1 auxiliary Syrian archer and some legionary cav and other forces. So he was relatively new to this game. I had recommended that he bring more heavy infantry because when we first deployed this, or when we were first selecting factions, I immediately went to Massagetæ, and our opponents swapped factions around, and we basically saw them choose Pontus and what are these guys called? Massilia. So yeah, they had a while to pick a counter choice against us. I was, I knew they were going to bring a bunch of these Thereo spears and archers, which they ended up bringing a lot of Balearic slingers. So if you don't recall, the Thereo spears, are kind of the excellent counter. They have lots of precursor javelins, and being spears that can form up into square, can seemingly be impenetrable or invulnerable, I should say, to cavalry strikes. So I was telling my ally, bring a lot of heavy infantry, that way we can chew through their spear line. They've decided to form up on this hill with tons of eastern slingers and archers positioning up there. A bunch of these Thereo spears guarding the flanks. So this is going to be a very, very tough nut to crack. These are, in addition, pikes. So they knew what they were doing. Going up against a horse faction, they brought a lot of spears, and they brought some heavy pikes, at least to hold back the Romans. Gonna plant themselves up on this hill and hold us back. Now, if we were playing as, actually Bretonnia, then I would just fly right on over here with my Pegasus Knights and take these guys out. But for the time being, in the ancient days, this is as secure a position as one could ask for. I'm trying to poke and prod around the flanks. That's the only way we're going to really get an advantage. Look at the Roman force. Really not much infantry compared to the huge enemy numbers. So I've swung around, but in doing so I encountered an enemy trap where they had put 2 Tarentine cav forces in the force. I am able to catch up to some of them, so I'm going to start picking away at them. But in my pursuit, you'll notice that the Tarentine cav there is going to show turnabout and throw javelins at me. So I'm going to start to take some losses with my... Oh my god, yeah, they took a lot of losses. And that was mostly due to them straying too close to these Thereo spears. Got a javelin attack in the flank, that's where he sprung his track. So a well done trap. I'm going to try and close off on them. My mercenary Amazonian riders, let's watch these forces, are just roaming about getting some pot shots. The enemy is pretty well armored, so I'm going to be having a hard time of it. I'm pulling them back to try and support the finishing off of these Tarentine cav. But it's taking a while. They're very fast, nimble troops. My Azonian riders do well if they can get around the flanks, and so that's what they're doing. Parthian shot right into the enemy forces, chewing away at them. But this is all kind of a distraction where I would otherwise love to be taking out the enemy infantry. Meanwhile, the opponents are trying to corral me back towards the support of the archers and all that. So I'm not really going to do that. I'm pulling around more cavalry, and I'm going to try and swing into support. Let's go ahead and watch the top view. So you can see me here finally getting in on these Tarentine cav, but what they were able to do is to a step Noble Lancer force. That was definitely not a trade in my favor, although I did sneak 1 mercenary Amazonian rider around back, perhaps to snipe at the general or disrupt some of these positions. Rome, it seems like here, is going to start pushing forward in the center. I do want to take the moment, because this is going to be a fairly long battle, to talk real briefly about the channel. So this video is going to be coming at a time where I didn't upload something in 4 or 5 days, which isn't that much of a big deal. I wanted to spend time with my dad for Father's Day. I hope you guys all had a happy Father's Day. But kind of at the same time, I was feeling burnt out by putting up YouTube videos. I do work full-time now. Those of you who have watched me for a while kind of saw when I was a student in college. So since graduated last year, and I work full-time. I'm a design engineer for a solar company. So well, actually my department, I'm in utilities power plant department. So I help design and implement utility power plants for solar facilities. It's really cool in the US, in Mexico, in Chile, abroad. So it's a lot of demanding work, and so I've been spending long hours. And so at the end of the day, if I do end up playing Total War, a lot of the times I don't want to sit down and record because despite that being fun, it does end up being a bit of a chore. So that is why you saw kind of myself being burnt out a bit. And on top of that, while I'm trying to supply you with gameplay and recordings, I mean, you talk about homework. The documentaries that I've been doing in the past have definitely been something like homework. So that's why you've seen me slow down pretty significantly, I would say, in terms of documentaries. I think it was 4 months ago where I had rolled out with my first Evolution of the Roman Legions episode. And I definitely intend to do more. I have the script written up for part 2, but just coming home from work exhausted and taking a look at that script that to my estimation, is going to be a 40-minute long video, where in those types of documentaries, even preparing just 1 minute of footage can sometimes take like an hour. You have to realize that I have to do the recording of the audio, I then have to set up my battles, I then have to do the recording, I then have to do the editing, taking multiple shots, doing the graphics, and it just takes a lot of work. So lately I've been feeling a little burnt out. You could say, from the Bilbo's quote, I felt like butter spread thin, or like butter spread over too much bread. Felt thin. So I'm going to try and ramp back up into it. I do want to get back into the documentaries. It does definitely bring me a lot of pleasure, and I know it's something that you guys definitely like. So yeah, I'll try and get back to that. For the time being, I'm going to try and do a bit of a rotation between the different Total War titles. So Warhammer right now is in need for a patch. The Lord sniping is becoming a bit monotonous, and so I'm waiting for a bit more of a change. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a mix of content, maybe trying out some mods. So I do have Feint here with my mercenary Amazonian riders, trying to pull his guys out of position. I charged forward with some of my units. He turned about and braced with this long line of Thereo spears, and is now going to be continuing to pull back. So my guys are going to be continuing to try and pester the flanks, but I'm not able to find a spot where I can blow open a hole. These Amazonian riders here have 12 kills, a couple of them being landed on the Tarentine Cav, a couple of them on, I guess, just pot shots at this point. So I've done not much to crack this this location. Balearic Slingers have extreme range, the front is covered, and look at this. This entire force can now bear down on the Romans. This is the entirety of my allies' force. You can see he is new. He's given his entire army an attack order. So this is kind of the ally that I'm kind of saddened me to see, Rome going in a big ball. Ideally, what they would do is spread out, tie down the enemy, help me exploit gaps and blow up the enemy. This is kind of the ideal formation for our opponents. They can easily overwhelm this. I mean, we have cavalry charging straight into Thereo spears. They're going to get absolutely butchered. But it is going to make a focal point where a lot of the Romans can pull in the enemy and allow me to get some hammer and anvil. So he is doing just that. As that happens, what I've been able to do is sneak away some cavalry into the flanks. I'm going to get a nice charge here with my Amazonian riders. I desperately want to take out these ranged units. These are mostly what are keeping me at bay. So I do clip a whole bunch of them. However, his Thereo spears are now turning about, and you can see the power of them shredding my units. I did hit a Thereo spear here with my Masagatai Saka Cataphracts coming in hot. I do have a second armored horse archer. I'm going to bait the enemy out of position. What I'm trying to do here is explode and disrupt this formation. Meanwhile, my Saka Cataphracts are ping-ponging here. I've taken 2 losses, have killed basically 60 of the opponents. But man, these Thereo spears, really hard to beat them. Every time I get engaged and stuck in combat, 1, I'm fighting spears. 2, the surrounding enemy force can just throw spears at me. So I'm losing numbers pretty steadily. So yeah, here with almost 100 kills, but yeah, it's going down very quickly. Rome, meanwhile, is completely pincered. It's going to be pincered soon on both sides. Fighting these naked warriors. And then over here, we actually have a general's unit charging straight into spears. Not going to be doing well. Luckily, these arrow spears are formed in a thin line. The archers are going to be firing into this mix. He did get somewhat of a rear charge with a little bit of the extra equites here, but I have to basically. This is a ticking ticking counter for me. If I don't engage soon, the Romans are going to get burnt out, and the enemy is going to overwhelm them. If Rome dies, then I have no anvil with which to hammer. So what I'm trying to do is work around the flanks. However, these units forming up into square really keep me from running them over. I'm losing more and more step lancers as I'm trying to micro over there. This is not looking good for me. Meanwhile, the hill here is just a complete suppressive position. That's why I'm sneaking some step armored lancers. This is going to be a nice pickup for me. My mercenary Amazonian riders are light cav, but still did a pretty good job against these naked swords. And I still have pretty good setup against these forces. I'm being very opportunistic with my charges. Any troops like these, the Serrated Spears, the second they show their backs, I'm going to charge them. And look how many of these forces are flattened to the ground. I pull out just in time, so almost 90 kills. But in the pullout and with the slingers shooting into me, I am losing just a huge number of men. Obviously, the Masagatai was not a good choice in this case, especially with giving our opponent so much time to counterpick and bring a good build. I should have swapped, but I decided I wanted to play the faction that I wanted to play. No ifs, ands, or buts. I just wanted to play as the Masagatai, regardless of what happened. So here I am, charging into the enemy. I'm going after the general, so despite it seeming a little bit lopsided, I do have some heavy hitters here, exploiting the shit out of the opponent. And now I've kind of cracked this nut. Going to be getting into the weaker components of his army, and over here, this is a crucial moment. I got in with my step armored lancers with 167 kills. They are flattening the entirety of these Easter Slinger force. They shattered completely. This is really, really good for me. So as I'm creaming these guys, you can see in the distance, my step troops are reforming to try and exploit this situation. Gonna disengage slightly, pull out, and then go after this next clump of juicy, juicy slinger forces. I have more guys in the back coming in too. And the reason I'm playing as these step troops is as, well, I've been listening to a lot of Dan Carlin recently. I just re-listened to his Wrath of the Khan series, which if you don't know is about the Mongols. Very, very interesting. I listened to his extra hardcore episode, more about the Mongol tactics and what that made them so strong, and the evolution of the steppe armies, why they were so powerful. And one of the main points that he makes talking about these steppe armies, especially the Mongols, is that not too long ago, you go back like 100 years or so, and historians did not acknowledge the power of the Mongols. The predominant idea of how these steppe tribes did so well was just through, a tide of barbarians who won sheerly by number. But it's in recent years where we have a better understanding of, their actual troop numbers, of their actual troop composition, their tactics and all that, that we realize their conquests, they were often vastly outnumbered, but were able to take on huge armies. In one of them, Dan Carlin talks about basically the Mongols fighting against the Chinese, and that was the top military to go up against. And as part of kind of the investigation of what was to the west of the Great Khan's empires, he sends Jebe the Arrow, I believe, to go scout west with 20,000 men, and they are just supposed to see what lies to the west. And in doing so, they go on one of these great scouting missions with 20,000 men that just wrecks Polish armies, Hungarian armies. It goes around and just destroys European knights left, right, and they do so much damage as only a scouting force. And just incredible, the tactics they had. Basically what it comes down to is when you have troops fighting on horseback, you can outmaneuver your opponent. There's a saying that's essentially, a novice or someone who's new to the military will try and study tactics, but a master learns logistics. And so that kind of speaks to the idea that, you can be great on the battlefield in maneuvering your troops, but it's on the grand scale where things really happen. And the Mongols were great at that, depriving the enemy of the supply chain they needed, doing kind of campaigns deep into the enemy territory, being completely mounted. They could go very quickly, ping pong around the land, burn as they went, cause terror. They had a basically a specifically derived strategy of having huge amounts of slaughter and terror to make the enemy super scared of them. And so it meant that, you know, if you didn't surrender to the Mongols immediately, you would basically face imminent death. And so once the Mongols established a reputation, they could just walk up to the city gates, and a lot of people would surrender almost immediately to them, which allowed them to save their numbers. But against big European armies, what they would do is, you know, size them up and allow the Europeans to come into close contact with them. The Mongols had very good discipline. They would come up very close to the Europeans, fire their arrows, and draw back. They had a unit called the Mangadai, which were essentially units of what amounts to trained actors, where they have mounted horsemen who were meant to, you know, engage in battle, fire arrows, get in close quarters combat. But the stage performance came when they pretended to break and rout, running wildly, dropping weapons here and there. And so what happened is the European troops would follow after them. As they did that, what would happen is, you know, just like this unit would chase after the Mongols, get drawn out, get spread out, and then eventually they would then get exhausted. The Mongols would then whip about, not actually having been thrown into a rout, and just absolutely obliterate the pursuing forces. They would use artillery, having fought against the Chinese. They had access to gunpowder, some of the best siege engineers. They put that to use. They had these, you know, massive supply chains that they brought with them, carrying these guns and artillery pieces they could set up to assault bridgeheads, assault cities, just crazy stuff. And so it's kind of that recent passion for the Mongols and interest in them that has made me want to play as the Masagatai and other forces. It's also a bit of more fun in terms of micro on the battlefield. So back to this actual battle, what's happened is you've seen a lot of hammer and anviling taking place. I took the opportunity of Rome being in this forest to hit the enemy left and right, and being opportunistic myself to take out some straggler forces. So we've gotten a pretty good amount of kills. At this point, the balance of power is definitely not in our favor, but the Romans do have 4 Praetorian Guard units with 87, 173, 71, and 61 kills to their name. I'm going to be around here just eating up, gobbling up some of these naked swords. And with my armored horse archers, they can do a lot of damage on the charge, so the enemy would do well to retreat back into the circle. What I can also do is I have my general here, and he can pop second wind, so I will be pulling him back into this area to try and replenish the Praetorian Guards, because we have some elite infantry here. Still very tough, very good numbers on them. Against enemy spears, we should be able to chew through that, but we really need the best of engagements. And so now I'm going to be going around for a surrounding move. Now, I'm not quite sure how much ammo our opponents have left. They brought so many Thoreau spears at the beginning of this battle that I'm not quite sure how many of them expended their ammo, and this is devastating here on the last, you know, couple stages of the battle here, the final moments. I cannot risk a full javelin volley. So what we're trying to do is tell my ally here to move in with the Romans. They can definitely absorb those volleys and pin the enemy. Now we do still have one Syrian archer force that's going to try and roll in here. I'm telling my ally to, you know, target the enemy pikes or target the enemy light peltas, target something that is the crux of their formation. I think for me it's going to be the pikemen and the archers. The archers because that's what is going to, you know, keep my cavalry off their backs, and the pikemen because that's what's going to keep the Roman infantry off their backs. So those would be my priorities. I still have units hidden in the woods here. I'm just trying to keep our opponents guessing at this point. And they are starting to kind of open up, which is going to allow us to perhaps exploit a gap here. Going to fast forward a bit. And the rest of this is going to be us resting our troops, the enemy redeploying to face our main army, forming up into thin lines. And what they have over here is actually this straggler force that's trying to make its way back to the main line. This is a pretty juicy force of 120 men. I don't necessarily want it to escape, so I'm going to do some feints, force it to go into square, and just overall try and harass it. I was telling my ally, send a Praetorian guard unit here, help me clean these guys up. Apparently he didn't necessarily want to listen, and so these guys are going to get exhausted from this melee. I'm going to lose a couple troops, and they're going to wander their way back to the main force. So overall, I think that was an opportunity missed, and we'll see if that ends up butting us in the butt. I guess while we have a little bit of moment of calm here, which is interesting to speak of moments of calm in a Total War game, multiplayer game, this is not something you see in Total War Warhammer, and it's something that is desperately missed in Warhammer, is there is no slowing down in the pace of the game. Multiplayer battles are, everything is about the rush, it's about sniping the general, and after that it's about, closing in, and just the mechanics of that game make it so that your forces collapse. If your general has been killed, then your army is going to collapse basically a couple minutes after first impact. You are never going to have scenarios like this, which is something that's desperately missed. I mean, we're missing the end game, a lot of the end game from Total War Warhammer. We're missing the skirmishing phase, so I'm really looking forward to some of the rumors that I've been hearing, and that is going to be rumors of the Wood Elves being included as part of the DLC package. Unconfirmed when that's going to come out, but presumably we'll be seeing the Wood Elves, also the Beastmen, so hopefully that'll shake it up a bit. My opponent here, again, giving mass attack orders, sending in the auxiliary cav against this force. Really not the best use of cavalry. Yes, he's going to break through the thin lines, but take a look at what's behind here. Pikemen rushing into position, and tons of infantry. All of this is going to be swarming over here, so what I decide to do is this is the time to launch my cavalry. I need to back up the Roman assault. If he's going in, I really need to pull in. So here I'm bringing my Steppe Noble Lancers, Saka Cataphracts. So our opponents should really be pivoting everything to that front to beat back the Romans. Praetorian Guard here is at healthy stats, because I went in and I gave it a little bit of second wind. I get a nice charge off here with my archers, and what I'm going to do is pull through. I desperately need to start hitting his light peltas, and so I'm doing a little bit of an exploitation there. Clip his light peltas, and what I'm going to do is give an attack order to the rear. What I do here is sneak through the smallest of gaps with my Steppe Noble Lancers. I'm going to pull through more and more. I'm going to get intercepted. I'm going to line up a big charge into the rear of this force, and that is going to free up the Romans. It's going to instantly cause morale penalties to the pikeman force. Any force that's here, unit losing decisively, casualties sustained. So I really needed to punch through with those units. It's going to be a bit sacrificial because now I get attacked in the rear by some forces, but I really need to buy time for these Praetorian Guards, and the pikes that they're fighting are the biggest thing that's going to keep them back. So look, we broke one pike force decisively due to my charge in the rear. But that cost me a pretty hefty number. I did charge in with another unit of armored horse archers. I'm going to be ping-ponging around, like I said. I still have a couple healthy units. Here, landed a strike on his peltas and his Thoris hoplites. I'm going to pull out of this engagement without taking too many losses. I'm at 65, although the rear of my force looks like it's going to get surrounded. Really need to pull out here. 64, 63, so I'm losing a couple. And this could threaten to get around the Romans' flank, so this is going to be problematic for us. But we are doing a good job of crunching away at the enemy front lines. And now I have almost nothing to threaten the rear, which is bad for us. These pikes are back up and running. Oh, don't tell me you give an attack order. Yeah, these Praetorians and Triarii going up against the wrong targets. They should really disengage. Let me continue to chew at these weakened targets. I've only got a couple troops left, so let's watch. I feint an attack on the right just to get my guys in position, and then we're going to pivot to the left, psych nah, and get right into the back of this force. Definitely needed to disrupt this. That's going to free up the Praetorians. You can see them now closing in here. But meanwhile, oh my god, all those Thoreau spears and peltas just killing the bejesus out of my Saka Cataphracts. Down to 41 men, 127 kills, but look at this. absolutely shatter this force. They have so many troops left, but it looks like we're doing alright at this point. I'm going to pull my sack of cataphracts back. I do need to wait until I have second wind to be able to pop that, although I am kind of debating whether or not to give it to these Praetorian guards, because they are going to be a real killing power. I did pop it earlier, but again, they're back to being exhausted. They popped Crack the Whip and all that, so that is not going to be good for us. The enemy's popping Rally, so that should boost some of their stats, although I think it was a bit preemptive. Also, another thing about gameplay that I do miss a bit is the match combat animations. I understand why it shouldn't be in Total War Warhammer, and it's one of the things that I was actually really happy they got rid of in Total War Warhammer, but seeing the combat like this, the up-close effects, really makes me kind of wish it was there. At least, maybe not all the time, but at least some of the time. You get some really cool animations going on. Ooh, in the back, this stray force that was going to try and hit us from the rear gets flattened by my Steppe Noble Lancers, and we pull out of there. 255 kills, 268. Ridiculous on them. They try and form up to the square while they're dazed and confused. That's not going to work. Sack of cataphracts around here. I popped Battle Rhythm on this force, I believe. And what I'm trying to do is angle around here before they can kill off our Praetorian guards. I land a charge into the rear, but it's too late. The Praetorians are going to actually break at this point. Not what we wanted to see. Try and disengage, but now we're completely surrounded. A second Praetorian Guard unit is going to fall back. That's probably because they're going up against the pick hoplites in this position, fighting against the Romans here. So I'm definitely going to have to bring in more troops, but now we are wavering all around. Man, I've got just such low cavalry numbers. I'm going to try and land a strike on this blob. I'm definitely getting some cost efficiency here at the end. Had I had a couple more archers, I could be shooting the shit out of these picked hoplites. But at the end of the day, I think they were pretty much wasted early on in the battle. Not much I could do with them. I mean, the enemy had tons of archers, tons of Thoreau spears. Couldn't really do anything to get in a good position. They could always outrange me and outshoot me. So it was really up to the Roman player to close in a key location. And I think him charging up through the center was the perfect invitation for the enemy to envelop us. So he should have probably rolled up on one of the flanks. And yeah, this Peltas force here being very cost effective against my cavalry troops. I am hoping to get back to do more documentaries in the future. Like I said, I mean, Roman history and history of antiquity is definitely one of my passions. I love sharing it, so I really do hope I can make some shorter length videos on, you know, hoplite warfare or different siege engines or just sieges in general. Just some shorter sequence videos. Really want to get back to that stuff, so don't think at any point that I've given up on it. Yes, I may be burnt out from time to time, but it's definitely something that I will always want to cover and do. So hearing your support is always welcome, and yeah, the support really helps me get through the grind at times. At the end here we actually see kills, something that is missing from Attila, from Warhammer, inexplicably so. I have no idea why. Anyways, taking a look at the kills, I got 2556 kills, far and away the most number of kills, so yeah, I mean, just proving their worth. Look at these armored horse archers, 202, 216, 245, 441, are you serious? That is absurd. That's more than elephants usually get. Mercenary Amazonian riders doing okay. Steppe Noble Lancers, 336, 115, 165, 175. This is ridiculous. Look how many experienced chevrons they got. So all around, really good job to my troops. I think we could have pulled that off had my ally played a little bit better. I mean, he still got 325, 288, 129 with Praetorians. I think the cavalry was overall a waste. Yeah, look how much money went down the drain here. Should have just thrown those away. Picked up a couple more Hastati just to fill out the roster with a bunch of Hastati. And I think we definitely could have overwhelmed these spears. Yeah, let's see our opponents. Here, oh, sorry, I called this Massilia. This is Syracuse. Syracuse, nothing really doing too well, but these Thoreau spears just over time racked up the kills. Yeah, most of this against my cav. And then this player here, Professional Potato, really not getting much done with his Eastern Slingers. Those are the guys that I ambushed with this Steppe Armored Lancer unit. I mean, he kind of killed all of them. Pikemen did pretty well, mostly because the Romans ran straight into them, and once again through his spears, just picking up units with the jav kills here and there. So anyways, feels good to be back in Rome 2 for some battles. I really do enjoy playing as a steppe factions. Their history is interesting, their playstyle is interesting, so yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. And again, apologies for the delays in uploads. I'm definitely hoping to do more. So anyways, see you in the next one. Peace out.